Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Charlotte Ashmon. Welcome to my channel where we discuss everything educational and inspirational. Now in this video, I want to talk about the role of faith and success. Now, big disclaimer, if you are a person who do not believe in a higher force, do not watch this video. It's not for you. All right. This video really is for persons who believe in a higher force, who believe that there is this force guiding their lives and that the universe is out there to make things happen for their greater good. Or I call that force world boss, my world boss. Some persons may refer to that as God, Jesus. Yeah. But I refer to world boss as the guiding force in my life, man. I believe God is just the boss of the universe. So yeah, my affectionate name is World Boss, right? So this video really is talking about the association between faith and success. And it could be economic success, it could be success in school. I mean, just success overall, right? The role that faith plays in your success. Hi, Patrick. All right, so I want to share a couple of stories with you about faith. I refer to 2014 a lot in my talks whenever I'm asked to do a motivational session. I always refer to 2014 because 2014 for me was a defining year. It was the year that I woke up one day and I had no money. So 2014 is a very important year for me. And in 2014, I was finishing up my PhD. And I don't know, my PhD was just so important to me. And I remember during the final term, so many things happened during that final term of my studies. One thing that happened was that my university actually wrote to me and told me that basically I needed to finish up that term, right? I need to finish in 2014. They weren't gonna grant me any more time to do the doctoral work. I had to finish up. And another thing that happened was that I ran out of money. So, there I was in the United States studying, I had no money, and I had a deadline to finish. And so many things happened to just test my will to succeed. I remember one day I flew into the States and my cell phone was off. My electricity at home was off. I mean, I found myself without food and I had papers to write, right? Now, being the person that I am, I wasn't going to call anybody to tell them, boy, this is my situation, right? I decided that I was going to rally on my faith in God, my faith in the world boss. And I remember this particular day when I had, like I said, I had no food, no electricity, nothing. And I drove to a church on Broward Boulevard. And I remember just going in and speaking to the pastor. And I told him my situation. I told him that, I was in the States, I was studying, and I just ran out of money. I had nothing to eat. And, I wanted to find out how the church could actually help. And, the pastor sat and he listened to me and he offered me some help. He was offering to give me some money and some food. And let me tell you this, guys. I sat in the chair. As a matter of fact, he called his wife in, the meeting, on the meeting and, offered me food, money, whatever. And I was in that meeting and the Spirit came to me, in my mind and said, Charlotte, do not beg. Do not beg. And there I was wondering, what? I mean, I'm hungry. I have no money and I need something to eat. And the voice in my head said, never seen the righteous forsaken, nor a seed begging bread. And, the voice was just telling me not to beg. So I said to the pastor and his wife, you know what? I don't want anything. I just want you guys to pray for me. No, guys, I want you to listen to what I'm saying and when I talk about faith and success. I just want you guys to pray for me. Just pray for me. Just pray that I get the strength to go through what I'm going through. That was my prayer request. Just pray that I get the strength to go through what I'm going through. And the pastor and his wife just went and just prayed for me. And when they finished praying for me, I drove out. And before I got to 100 meters, my phone rang. And it was a friend of mine who just came on my phone and said, Charlotte, I know you don't have any money. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I never tell her that I didn't have any money. And she said, I know you don't have any money. And I wanted to just drive to come and see me because I have some money for you. And I drove to her and she gave me $600. Now, it's important, guys, that, when you say that you have faith, you really believe that God will take care of you no matter what the situation is. And also, it's also important that you recognize the voice of God because, sitting there, when the voice came to me, I said, do not beg, do not beg. I was really flabbergasted because I thought that was my only option, I was in a spot and this was a viable alternative, right? I want to share another story with you. During that same period in 2014, I had to try to figure out a way to solve the situation of finding enough money to go to school and, just to finish up my studies because I had to finish. I went to America to do a PhD and I was coming home with a PhD. So, in just trying to finish, I write about this a lot. When I wrote this book, Limitless, I said it was going to be a trilogy, I was just going to write about stories from I was 4 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30. And I just find myself keep writing. So I am at book 4. And some of these stories you'll find in Limitless, So I had to figure out a way to finish school and to finish school, I had to pay for school. Doing the work was not hard, but paying for school for that last term was really challenging. And I remember talk about this so much that I did everything that I possibly could to come up with the money to pay for school. Guys, I'm going to tell you what I did. At the time, I owned a property in Jamaica and I approached a local bank in Jamaica to see if they would give me some money, using my title as collateral, and they refused. They said that the property, basically couldn't hold the loan because it needed a lot of fixing up, and I just could not get the money. Guys, we're talking about the role of faith and success, or the association between faith and success. And, I was really discouraged. So, guys, if you're going through something this morning and you're discouraged because you're trying, I wanted to pay attention to this. So I was really discouraged. But we had a property in Florida and I flew up to Florida and I said, okay, I'm going to approach a bank there to see if they would lend me some money and use that title as collateral. That did not work because, I wasn't working there and they didn't see how I was going to pay back the loan. So I was stuck. And, after doing everything that I could, everything that was in my powers, I decided that, I was going to just leave this in the world boss's hand. I was just going to leave this to God. And I started praying about the situation. I started just praying. I said, God, listen, you have to solve this. Like I tell you guys, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in a higher being, do not watch this. But I'm telling you, I started praying. And, I started praying. I said, God, you really need to solve this situation because I don't know how to solve it. I cannot solve this, right? Because I have tried everything that I could and nothing was working out. So a thought came to me. I said, you know what, Charlotte? Maybe what you should do is rent your car. Because if you rent your car, then you could earn some money and you could pay for school. And I thought about it and I said, but if I rent my car, and something happens, then I'm going to be in even more trouble. And I said, well, what if somebody crashed the car, I don't want to do that. And furthermore, I wouldn't have gotten the money up front to pay for school. So that was just not a viable alternative. And guys, I started praying because I said, I needed a solution. And let me tell you something, guys. One day I just sat in my apartment And I started looking around because it's like I kept hearing a voice saying to me, you have what you need to get to where you want to go. And that is something I want you guys to understand. Everything that you need to make you successful, you already have it. Believe me, you have what you need to get to where you want to go. I kept hearing that every time I prayed about it, God, just find a way, just help me to figure this out, just send some help. I kept hearing, you have what you need to get to where you want to go. And that was just repeated. That was just in my head, that I have what I need to get to where I want to go. And sometimes I was just quarreling with God. I'm like, God, what do I have? You see that I tried to use the property in Jamaica and that didn't work. You see that I tried to use the property in Florida, that didn't work. And you keep telling me that I have what I need to get to where I want to go. What do I have? And I'm arguing with God and I'm saying, I don't have nothing. I'm going to get kicked out of school. I've spent how many years working on my PhD? Over 7 years, and I'm not going to finish. And this is not fair. You man, me a war with God, come and say, this is not fair. This is not fair. Anyways, the voice kept telling me, you have what you need to get to where you want to go. You have what you need to get to where you want to go. And one day I just sat down in my apartment and I looked around. And there was the answer, voila, the apartment. Oh my God, I just could not believe that I did not see that answer from before. I had the apartment. So I said to myself, okay, I am going to rent my apartment and live in my car. That was the solution. And I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to rent my apartment and live in my car, I need a person to pay for the rent upfront. I needed like 3 months rent upfront because the term is approximately 3 months. So if they pay for 3 months rent, I'll get $3,300. I was going to rent my apartment for $1,100. I'll get $3,300, and I could pay for school. School would I think I owed $3,800, but I know that I could work something out with school because this was my final term. I'd paid everything up front, meaning that I was paying as I was going along. So I don't think the university would be that hard. So I said, okay, if I could only find somebody to rent the place for 3 months, then I'd be good. And guys, you see, when you make a decision, do not call anybody to ask their opinion. You don't want to hear anything from anybody. You make your decision, just act on it. Because sometimes people who don't see a vision, people who don't know where you're going, will try to tell you things like, oh, this is not going to work. Why are you doing this? This is so stupid. No, you sat down, you thought about it, you prayed about it, you make your decision, just run with it. As long as you're not doing anything illegal, you're not doing anything dishonest, just run with it. Don't ask anybody for any opinion. So I made my decision. I was going to rent my apartment and I was going to live in my car. And that was what I was going to do. So I didn't need anybody to tell me if that was the right thing to do. I didn't need that. So what I did, I called a friend of mine and I said, listen, I have an apartment renting, and I described my apartment and the features and so on. And she said, you know what? I know somebody who is going to Florida and they're going to have a baby and they need somewhere to stay. They need somewhere for 3 months. Can you believe that, guys? I needed somebody to rent my place for 3 months. And here was my friend telling me that somebody was coming up to the US and they needed a place for 3 months. All right, that was perfect. So, guys, I contacted the person and they came, they looked at my apartment and they said that they wanted it. So I said to them, cool. The only thing that I needed from them was that I wanted them to pay me the 3 months rent up front. I wanted the rent up front. So they said, yes, they could pay for the rent up front. And that was just perfect. I didn't even take the money from them. I just took them on the university's website and they entered their credit card information and they just paid the balance on my account. Well, they didn't, the money that they paid didn't cover the entire balance, but they just paid. Now, guys, we're talking about the association between faith and success. Now, I want to tell you how this worked out. So I rented my apartment and I remember I packed away my passport, my visa and my important documents. And I just threw some clothes in the back of my car. And guys, I did not know, believe me, I did not know where I was going to sleep that night. I was technically homeless, you know. I remember when I came on profile, when I was finished with my PhD in 2016, and I told Ian, yeah, I went homeless. I mean, but it was a homelessness that I chose, right? So yeah, I rented the place, my apartment, and I did not know where I was going to sleep that particular night. But I want to show you how God is just awesome and gracious. As I was going through the door, guys, a friend of mine, and when I say a friend, this person wasn't even a friend. I want to make this clear. This person became a really good friend, but at the time wasn't really a friend like that. This was a person who I met in the beauty salon when I used to go and do my nails. I met this girl. And we used to just talk about nails, talk about things. She was a pharmacist, brilliant girl. And we met up from time to time, but it wasn't like, when you talk about your friend, somebody you know from a long time, this was more of an acquaintance. And as I was stepping through the door, I saw a message coming up on I think it was my phone. And she said to me, Charlotte, I haven't seen you in a while. And I was like, yeah, I haven't seen you. And she said to me, what are you up to? And quickly I just thought about it. And I said, I'm taking a road trip. And she said to me, how come you're taking a road trip and you've never come to see me? You've never come to look for me, So I didn't want to tell this girl that I was homeless. No, I just said, where you live? And, I was in Fort Lauderdale. So she said, oh, I moved to Orlando. And I'm like, okay, send me your address. So she sent me her address. And I just put it in my GPS and I started the 4-hour drive to Orlando. Now, guys, let me tell you this. When I got close to where she lived, I noticed that the landscape was just changing. You can know when you're going into certain neighborhoods. I mean, the place just became more beautiful, salubrious houses, the landscape nice. I realized, okay, so this girl live in a really nice neighborhood. So I stopped at a gas station and I kind of fix up myself, put on a little face powder and, kind of fix up myself now because I'm not lying, but it didn't really look popped down. And I say, I'm going to step in the girl's neighborhood and I'm going to go and see her and I'm going to, fix up myself nice, So when I reached her apartment, I realized that God had already prepared a place for me because when I got there, the girl gave me a suite. Guys, I wanted to understand when I talk about a suite, I'm talking about like where I was staying had over that section had like 2 bedrooms, bathroom, nice marble tiles from floor to ceiling, beautiful place. And I mean, somewhere was already prepared for me, right? So when I talk about faith and success, no, I didn't know where I was going to lay my head that night. But I had enough faith to know that, okay, God was going to come through for me. My world boss was going to come through for me. So I got the place and, suffice to say, I was comfortable. A lot more happened during that time, which I'll just forego. But, of course, you guys know that I finished my studies that term and, all's well that ends well. So that's 2 stories that show you, the power of faith and success. And, also it shows you belief in self too and belief in what you're doing. Sometimes, we want to be really successful. Yeah, we want to be so successful, but we're not willing to make any sacrifice. We don't want to sacrifice anything. We don't want to come out of our comfort zone. We believe that, we must live in our own country and the money must just come and we must just work 8 hours a day. We mustn't do anything extra. We mustn't give up anything. But really, guys, I want you to understand that, to be really successful, it takes hard work. For me, it took a level of faith in the supernatural. Yeah. I can't discount that. Guys. I know some people don't believe in that. They think that is here for you, and that's okay. I'm okay with you and your beliefs, but I'm telling you, for me, my level of success, and yes, according to society's definition of success, I am a successful person. But it took belief, it took hard work, belief in self, belief in the supernatural, who I call, like I started at the beginning of my life, world boss. I'm gonna tell you one more story, and then I'm gonna have to go. I want to tell you this. Most of you would know that I started a whole e-learning business in the Caribbean. I was the pioneer of e-learning. And I want to tell you how that seed was planted in my head. I want to tell you about that. Another faith and success story. I remember when I finished my MBA, again, I was going through some serious financial stress because finished studying, and I just got a job, just bought a car. I was in Florida at the time. I have rent to pay. You have bills and so on. And I remember one particular day, and I was hustling, right? For those of you who know me, you know that I collect art. And one of the things that fostered that was that when I was studying, I used to sell art. I used to actually purchase artwork from South Africa rather, and sell them back in South Florida, right? Now, that used to just, doing that would just supplement what I was earning. Actually, guys, when I finished my MBA, I started working at a Fortune 500 company, big company, downtown Fort Lauderdale. I remember one particular Friday, I needed to come up with my portion of the rent because I used to share an apartment at the time with a roommate, a good friend of mine. We did our masters together, we did our PhD together, and we used to live together. And I needed to come up with my portion of the rent. And I'm telling you, man, faith is something else. And I remember this particular day, I went around to all the galleries because remember I was telling you that I used to buy art from South Africa and sell them back in South Florida. And I remember I went around to all the galleries that sold artwork for me, and no gallery sold anything. Nobody had any money for me. And I was just super frustrated. And I'm telling you, so when I get frustrated, I start talking to the world boss. I start talking to God. And I remember this particular day, I was just having it out with God, and I was saying, God, listen, I know heaven is not having a recession. So I know you're not broke. I know you're not broke. I know you're not broke. So I don't understand why you can't give me. I think at the time I needed $350. Why can't you just come through and just give me the $350? So I told you, I went to all the galleries that were selling art for me. Nobody sold anything. I couldn't come up with it out of my own means. And I needed to give my contribution of the rent to my roommate that day. She was the one who normally pay over the money and so on. So a voice in my head again, after I cuss off God, and I said, God, I know you're not broke. I know you're not having a recession. I know on earth we were going through a recession at the time, but I know heaven was not having a recession. I know you're not broke. I know you can give me this money. And I believe you can. And the voice just said to me, go to church. This is a Friday evening, guys. And I'm wondering, why am I going to go to church? Church, what is happening at church on a Friday? Anyways, I decided that I was going to listen to the voice and I was going to go to church. So I turned the car around and I went to church. And guys, when I walked into church, I'm telling you this is my final story. I'm telling you this. When I walked into church, I remember clearly that a gentleman by the name of Neil Ellis, he's a preacher from out of the Bahamas. He was preaching that night. And I walked in and I was mad because remember I was telling you, I was arguing that heaven wasn't having a recession. And I couldn't understand why God couldn't just send the $350. And I sat over to the left side of the church and I was just mad. And I remember this man was saying, we should raise our hands and praise God. And I was like, I am not going to do that. I am not doing anything. I'm not listening. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing nothing. And, the man said, Neil Ellis said, if you cannot obey me, how are you going to obey God? And I felt so bad. And, I got up from where I was and I moved over to the middle of the church. And I started listening to what he was saying and doing what he was saying that we should do. And I remember he was preaching from Genesis, and he was talking about a famine that was in a land. I think the land was called Gerar. And he was saying that there was a famine in this land, and God had said to the people to stay where they were, stay in the land, stay in the famine. And I was like, oh my God, why is God telling people to stay in a famine? That makes no sense. You know, I am internalizing the message, and I'm talking to myself. That makes no sense. I mean, if there's a famine, people should all go down to Egypt where they could get food. That would make sense. But anyway, God said to the people, do not, whoever he was talking to, do not go down to Egypt. Stay in this land, And God told his servant that, and they stayed in the land. And guys, you would not believe it. But when they stayed in the land, God tell the people, that the servant, I don't remember his name just now, to sow in that land, to sow during the famine. And I was like, oh my God, I am having a financial famine. And maybe what I need to do is to sow in my life. And when I talk about sow, I'm not talking about putting money in a pan and in a church plate. I'm just talking about doing something for yourself. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I need to sow into my life. I have always had this aspiration of starting an e-learning business, but I always thought that, you know what, I just didn't have the money, I didn't have the time, because like I said to you guys, I was actually working at a Fortune 500 company. I had started the website, but I just didn't have the time to pursue it. And, when I heard that message that, sow during the time of a famine, God was telling this man, his servant, to sow in the time of a famine. I said, okay, I am going to start this business. I'm going to sow in my life during this time of my famine. And guys, that is what planted that seed in my head that I should start up my e-learning business and just take it to the world. Anyways, long story short, I'm listening to the pastor, I'm paying attention to the message, and the pastor asked, said, who are you? And, pointing at me, and a lady behind me stood up, and said, like she was saying, I'm Sister Brown. And he said, no, not you. This lady here, pointing to me. And I stood up and I told him my name. He said, what are you doing here? And I told him that, I just finished my master's. And he started prophesying over my life, and he said, you know what, God had big things for me. And guys, I'm not lying. Remember, I told you that a couple minutes before, I was really angry with God, and I was telling God, listen, I know you're not having a recession, and you can give me the $350, and you stay too bad, you're not taking care of me. I am doing this at church. And listen to me, man, I was arguing. I was saying, God, imagine me a teacher at church for free. Them times I may teach English class, math class, and you can't even give me $350. Oh, you stay so. And anyway, here's this man telling me now, 20 minutes later or so, how God has big plans for me. And if he tells me what God has in store for me, it's going to blow my mind. And I was like, in my head, tell me, I want to hear, because I needed to hear something good. And, this bishop just prophesied over my life. And, I sat down. And guys, you're not going to believe this, but when the bishop finished preaching, he asked me to stand again, and I stood up. He asked me to spell my name, and I did. And guys, I'm going to end my video here because he handed me a check for $350 US. Yep. Guys, Limitless. I think that story is going to be in part 4. But for those of you who have been following me over the years, make sure you grab a copy for Christmas. Limitless. First decade. Second decade is coming out soon. And I'm going to put some of those stories that I've been telling you, like stories like I tell you now today in part 4. So initially, Limitless should have been just 3 parts. Yeah, should have just been 3 parts. 4 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40. But guys, God has been so good to me that I have decided, you see Limitless? I'm going to write Limitless until I'm gone. Share me, right? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I do look forward to seeing you again in another video. Goodbye. Oh, somebody was asking me how they can get Limitless. It's on Amazon, guys. It's on Amazon. And if you want a copy, we do have copies at Brian's bookstore. And also, you can get a copy from me. Just go to my website, charlotteashmon.com. You can also go to my ebook website. It's learninghubebooks.com. All right. So let me just put up my URLs. It's Charlotte, www.charlotteashmon.com. You can go there. You can purchase Limitless. Yeah. Learn about my life. And you can go to learninghubebooks.com. I'm going to put this up in the link so you can go there, guys, and purchase the book. All right, guys. Bye. See you again in another video.